Shyam. Welcome, and the stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. So we continue with the last part of our KH letter to number 2 to CWL. So today we are taking just these last two phrases, greeting to my new Chela, and then show my notes to no one. So starting with the first phrase, greeting to my new Chela, Raja says, the aspiration of lives was thus fulfilled. Mr. Leadbeater had known KH in many previous incarnations and tried to follow him. But it was only in this life that his karma brought him to the gateway of the path to liberation, which is also the path of joy in service. This line reminds one of the famous poem by Tagore, in which he says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. The memory of our Lord the Tathagata flashed out in the ego, and the personality leapt into what seemed to the lower mind the dark of an utter unknown. So here Raja is saying that the memory of the past experience that Leadbeater had with Lord Gautama Buddha was came to the to his lower mind, and immediately it leapt to that higher space of the Buddhic uh, state in which he recognized his duty in this birth. The intuition shown at a great crisis, and into the space of 12 hours were condensed the experience and the to require an average of 7 years. So here we know the background, whole story we have heard so far, how this whole letter came and what the master has asked him. Now the last line is he is greeting him to become, he is admitting him into the probationary path of chelaship and saying that now you are the new chela. But to even enter this path of the probationary path requires 7 years. Okay. So this so that has been shortcutted because of certain emergency in Adyar, for which we have seen why Leadbeater was required to go to Adyar. We have seen all that in the last sessions. Now we come to the next note, and this is going to take most of our time. In this, we are going to look at what was the situation with Sinet, what his contribution to the society was, but also the difficulties he caused to the society. We will look at that. Show my notes to no one. That is the last phrase. They were shown to me as in Raja. They were shown to me with the master's sanction years afterwards. Means after many years, CWL showed this particular set of three letters to Raja. But it was only in 1908 that, with the master's permission, the letter was published in the Theosophist of January that year, only in 1908. When the letter was then published, Mr. Leadbeater purposely left out this postscript, show my notes to no one. And similarly, I left it out when in 1919 I reprinted this letter in the Letters from the Masters of Wisdom, first series. Why? Why did we both leave out this postscript? Now Raja will tell us why. The explanation which I have to give is the most difficult part to write of this commentary on these letters of the Master KH, for it deals with the deep disappointment which a great theosophist who loved his master gave to that master through intellectual pride and lack of intuition. You know, through these entire commentary, which we have been doing almost for 2 months, you will notice Leadbeater Raja rarely says anything negative against anybody. But this part he will describe and show that negativity of Synod. Among the stalwarts of the Theosophical Society, next to HPB and Colonel Olcott, was AP Synod. Among the stalwarts, that means the people who were there right from the beginning, almost from the beginning. A wonderful achievement was his when, through his Occult World, that is the first book, he announced to the Western world the existence of the adepts and their philosophy. Certainly, years before HPB had sent forth her monumental Isis Unveiled, she and Colonel Olcott, with others, had in 1875 founded the Theosophical Society, and in 1878 a brilliant work was begun in founding the Theosophist, the magazine. But it was Mr. Sinnett who, for the first time in his Esoteric Buddhism, that is a second book, gave the modern world an outline of the wisdom of the masters, especially as to their action in the evolution of humanity. So, if you look at the dates, Occult World was published in June 1881. The Mahatma Letters correspondence, if you all remember, started in October 1880. Within such a short period, 8 months, he has, such is the brilliance of Sinnett, he could write his first book, Occult World. Then 1883, when by now he has resigned from the Pioneer and now moving back to London. In that ship journey to London, he writes the second book, Esoteric Buddhism, which is published in 1883. Very brilliant, there is no doubt. Now, because Leadbeater read both these books, he also joined, and numerous other people joined. So there is no, uh, it is completely correct that more than Isis Unveiled and the Theosophist, it was really at that time Esoteric Buddhism and Occult World, which was more clearer to people and help people to grasp Theosophy and hence join the society. Out of the answers to multifarious questions, often on very disjointed topics, Mr. Sinnett grasped with his mind the general lines of what the masters had to say on man, the invisible worlds, life after death, and the progress of mankind as a whole through eons of time. With esoteric Buddhism was born another presentation of the wisdom which clear thinking minds of the modern world could examine and grasp. So here Raja is praising the contribution of Sinnett, the fact that they were asking these questions. These questions were first addressed to KH, but when KH went on retreat, Mahatma M also joined in that correspondence. That time, even Hume was also involved. We know all these things, just revising, reminding, just recalling these things with all of you. And then, because Master M also got so interested in answering these questions, we got the cosmological notes, the Devachan notes, all of that details we got in the Mahatma letters. So all that very beautifully, Sinnett organized it much more with much more clarity than in Isis and Will. Yet Mr. Sinnett had a strange defect. Though he had a deep love for the Master KH, whom he addressed as guardian, my guardian, his will was deficient to change certain aspects of his character as the Master desired. To the last, he had also an ingrained prejudice as to the superiority of Western races and the inferiority of Eastern races. Though he was awed sometimes by the power which the adepts evidently possessed, he was never convinced that they, being Orientals, had really a better knowledge than he on all matters, especially as to the West. Now we know this part, we have all gone through this Mahatma letters, correspondences in which we notice this kind of arrogance which both Hume and Sinnett had. And many times the masters have said that you judge people by appearances. If somebody is not dressed properly, you are judging by that appearance. If they don't talk in your polished way, you judge by that. Now, in this context, we can all also try to think today, do we feel superior to anybody because of our birth? We may, because we may feel superior to somebody who's not educated, who's not as well off as us. These are these may seem very small to you, but for the masters, these are significant because if you want to study Sinnett's mindset, it is good to read his autobiography. So we will look at it. I will go through some parts of it also. We have only to read the long correspondence between him and the masters to note how constantly he pressed forward his views against those of the masters as to how theosophy should be proved to Western minds. So he had certain type of thinking. Initially, he had started in October 1880 saying, "You print this London newspaper both in Shimla. You at the same day it should come in London and in Shimla. That will prove your powers." That was the first thing he said. But then very similar such things where he wanted to show the proof of the abilities of the masters, he was constantly demanding, whereas the masters knew that was not the way to teach theosophy. Also, he was a very arrogant guy because you see the next line. It was not merely in joke that HPB, in her copy of Isis, which she gave him, wrote to the boss. That is the copy. HPB gave a copy to APS, and in that she has written to the boss. Nor after naming her own master, never with the least sense of irreverence, but strictly literal in her Americanism, the boss she termed Mr. Sinnett sub boss. So again, just here you can see the way people were around him, like HPB and Olcott, had to give some respect to these people, Hume and Sinnett. So calling him sub boss after she started calling Master M her boss is one thing that's referred here. So, one thing here you will notice throughout the Mahatma letters that these people, Sinnett and Hume, seem to think that the masters are some or normal rishi or somebody meditating. Like they are seeing numerous rishis and saints and all that who are meditating with some getting some occult pass. They are not able to grasp the real occult position of these two masters. And in fact, only in 1925, when Masters in the Path was written by CWL, did everybody understand that whole occult hierarchy with clarity. But unfortunately, by that time, APS Sinnett had already died. Even if it had been written, because Sinnett died in 1921 and Masters in the Path is published in 1925, even if, according to what we can understand of Sinnett's character, even if that was written before, Sinnett would not be able to grasp that hierarchy because of that blockage he had about his sense of intellectual superiority to any Indian. Now, in this context, we can all think how much do we internally grasp the nature of this hierarchy? How much do we internally grasp the nature of this hierarchy and the legacy that we have of their writings, of these teachings? These things we really need to internally think. We can look at that aspect because faults which are there in Sinet in some shade can be there in us also. So that is why we are studying to see the faults in us and self correct, not for just intellectual enjoyment of the history that is there, but we also need to see how it can help us to progress in our little journey. So let's continue. It was this intellectual pride which led him to be unjust, often, even as the master says, cruel to both HPB and Colonel Olcott. See, Sinnett was not only cruel to HPB and Olcott, you will be surprised to know that he wrote an article called The Vicissitudes of Theosophy in one pamphlet, American pamphlet called the Theosophic Messenger. It is there online, in which he criticizes Annie Besant when she became the president, when he was the vice president in 1907. he is critical of Annie Besant and writes an entire article on that. And that causes a correspondence between Annie Besant and Sinet. This correspondence is there also online, in which he says that if you are going to be against me, how can I have you as my vice president? We have to work as a team, but you have so many things against me. So I am requesting you to resign. So he resigns from vice presidency in 1917. There was a London Lodge of which he was the president. He changed the name of London Lodge to Elysian Lodge. The things Sinet did actually, and there was a lot of tragedy also, personal tragedy in Sinet's life around that time. 1908, he lost his 31-year-old son, Denny, to tuberculosis. And he lost Patience Sinet, his wife, the same year to cancer at the end of that year, 1908. 1909, he broke up from the Theosophical Society. But again, in 1911, Annie Besant took pity on him and got him back. And again, he became the vice president. He continued to be the vice president until his death in 1921. This is the small background. Let's continue. The American Democratic and to Mr. Sinnett, the lack of polish and society manners of Colonel Olcott grated on him intensely. And also to him, in most things, HPB was constantly in the wrong. We see this in the Mahatma letters, how critical Hume and Sinnett are of the founders. They always think that we are better off. And in fact, uh, in the autobiography and also in the vicissitudes of that article in which he talks against Annie Besant, he will say that I was the one who popularized theosophy through my esoteric Buddhism. In fact, even Secret Doctrine is not at all a clear book. It is not well written. He criticizes the Secret Doctrine. So that was really the inner nature of APS. Anyway, let's continue. Little by little, he grew so unreasonable, that is, Sinet, in his demands on the master and so unwilling to accept that there were rigid rules in occultism that do what the master KH could. Mr. Sinnett began to erect an ever growing barrier between himself and the guardian whom he loved in his hearts of hearts. So many negative thoughts, negative opinions, confused opinions, superiority, all that came between him and the master. At last, when in 1884, after the Coulomb attack began, and his attitude to HPB was one of constant blame for stupidities and blunders, of which he held her guilty, the master told him, well, she is virtually dead, and it is yourself, pardon me, this one more truth, who have killed the rude but faithful agent. One, moreover, who was really devoted to you personally. Friend, beware of pride and egoism. Here the master is telling. Friend, beware of pride and egoism, two of the worst snares for the feet of him who aspires to climb the high paths of knowledge and spirituality. You have opened a joint of your armor for the Dukpas. Do not complain if they found it and wounded you there. So, this is quoted by Raja from the Mahatma letter number 62. So because your attitude is so negative and you're so full of pride, you have made it possible for the Dukpas to get attracted to you and destroy your clarity and truthful thinking. Mr. Sinnett received this letter in London in October. Now, this letter number 62, now this is the context. Leadbeater received this letter number 2 on the 31st of October, 1884. Letter number 62 was received by Sinnett on October 10th, 1884, just 3 weeks before Leadbeater received. Now, the master in that letter had written to Sinnett, I am determined to make one more effort, the last I am permitted, to open your inner intuition. Unfortunately, however great your purely human intellect, your spiritual intuitions are dim and hazy, having never been developed. Now, this is the last letter of one of the last letters that that of this nature that Master has written to Synod. It must have been after October 10th and before October 31st, the date of the first letter to Leadbeater, that with some more than usual injustice towards HPB, Mr. Sinnett closed all unwittingly, and therein lies his tragedy, the door in the master's face. And so the master wrote. Now, before I read what the master wrote, I will tell you the background of what was going on between the master, Sinnett, HPB, and Alcott at that time. The context of the letter number 62. Mohini Mohan Chatterjee had come with Olcott to London because at that time, as already has been shown, that there was a need, there was a growing interest in theosophy, and there was a need for someone from India to explain theosophy better. They had not yet, HVB and the masters had not yet started writing the secret doctrine. So there was only Isis unveiled and the Theosophists. So they thought that Mohini Mohan Chatterjee, seemed, having understood it clearly, can explain to all the lodges in Europe and in London. So they had come. Now Alcott and Mohini was staying in. They were staying in Sinnett's house. Sinnett had given Alcott a room with good heating and all that. When Alcott left, Mohini was still in the room that was earlier given to him. That room had no heating at all. Mohini, coming from India, was really finding it very hard. One day, when he was coming down the staircase, it was in that room was at the topmost floor of that house. When he was coming down the staircase, he was shivering. So this Madame Gebhardt, if you remember, Mary Gebhardt, who was the one who hosted HPB in Germany, took care of her, many things she has done, this Mary Gebhardt. She was also a guest in all Sinnet's house. She saw this Mohini shivering and she thought in her mind, I wish the masters knew what is happening to this chela. Just she thought that, and then she offered some blankets to uh, Mohini. And she was wondering why they have not shifted his room. They could have shifted Mohini to Alcott's room because Alcott had left. But somehow, maybe Patience Sinnett was not well. Otherwise, she was a very kind person. But Sinnett did not take that care. So, Master KH had to deliberately send by occult means some warmth, physical warmth to Mohini to take care of his health. This attitude of treating the Indian in one way and the Westerner in another way, this really hurt the masters. The first mention of this was made in an earlier letter, before letter 62, by Master M. Said, you are treating people differently, and that is not the way we expect you. Second time this thing was mentioned in by KH also, that how can you treat two people so differently? Now, what happened is Sinnett assumed that it was HPB and Alcott who complained about him to these masters. Otherwise, how will the masters know? Jeez, he has never been able to understand the ability of the masters to see everything. He thinks that they have to be told things like how children will think. You must have complained about me. So he wrote out to HPB that and with lot of harsh words and very critically to HPP that the way you people are, you have no problem in complaining. You don't like my success. I have succeeded. You guys have failed in spreading theosophy, and now you want to some rubbish like that he has written, and now disturbed HPP. Now you understand the context. Now if you read the what the master says, you will understand because the master will explain to you to Sinet that it was never HPB or Alcott who did any complaint or anything. The master had read the thought of Mary Gabbard. He had read that thought, and so he knew the mistake that Sinet had made. So the master says the right is on her side, that is HPB. Your accusations are extremely unjust, and coming from you pain me the more. If after this distinct statement you still maintain the same attitude, I shall have to express my deep regret at this new failure of ours and wish you with all my heart better success with more worthy teachers. She certainly lacks charity, but indeed you lack discrimination. Regretfully yours, Cage. So the master has written this strict letter that now I'm so fed up that I think you're also another failure. We have had many failures. You're another failure. You better look out for another another teacher. This is the letter which has been written to Senate just 3 weeks before. So no wonder the master KH is now telling Leadbeater, don't show this letter to Senate. Okay, so that's the thing. But Mr. Sinnett still maintained the same attitude to the end, which you can see in his autobiography. Till the end, he talks ill of Alcott and Blavatsky, and also ill of his own son. According to him, was a failure who never got properly educated. His son married a girl in South Africa, had two children, but could not pursue any career properly, and eventually died of what is called consumption. I think it is the same as tuberculosis. There's no sense of love that he seems to feel even for his own son, and really doesn't seem like a person who had any. He was his greatest, I think, highlight in his life was that of the Mahatma letters correspondence, about which he was very proud that he was the chosen one. So in fact, when others received correspondence, he doubted it also, that we will see now. Even in the case when Alcott has received a letter from KH, Sinnett will doubt that. We will read that now. But Mr. Sinnett still maintained the same attitude to the end. 1 year before he died, when I saw him, he was still full of grievances and depreciatory of HPB, and especially of a contribution to Theosophy. But in contrast, Mrs. Patience Sinnett, a highly intellectual woman, understood HPB and made her allowances for her unconventional manners, impetuosity, which means being okay, like doing things at an impulse, impetuosity. For she loved HPB and HPB knew it, as did also the master. And in fact, it is said that in this, in the autobiography, I think it is said somewhere that if there was a girl called Vera, whom AP Sinnett loved before marriage. And unfortunately, the father of that girl was, they were in Germany. The father did not want that marriage to take place. But it is said that if he had married Vera in this birth, he would never have been involved with the Masters or the Theosophical Society. It was his marriage to Patience Sinnett which actually led him into Theosophy. And also, like, actually, what happened is when Alcott and HPB came to India, it was Patience in it who suggested to her husband that let us invite them to come to Shimla. So that was her suggestion. And of course, she was the host of all the times that they came. When I went to England as a boy, now Raja is talking about himself, I lived in his house for 2 years. Though he was polite to me, we were mere acquaintances. So he was also very young. 1889 is when he went, and Raja was born in 1875. So 14 years old. He was, however, always cordial with Mr. Leadbeater. Yet I had much opportunity to observe Mr. Sinnett and his ways, for in 1894 I was admitted into inner group of the London Lodge as a chela of the master, and was present at the intimate and informal gatherings of the group, which were held on most Sunday mornings in Sinnett's library for discussion. Mr. Sinnett, even in 1889, when I joined his household, never realized that he had broken his link with the master. Though he received no more letters, he was thoroughly convinced that the master still communicated with him through a lady, a clairvoyant, whom he used to put weekly into a trance whenever she stayed with with his wife and himself. For this lady who lived in Ireland, came to London only once or twice a year. This we saw earlier also. One of the Senate was trying to reach out to the masters through another medium, the American medium. I'm forgetting her name now. The lady who wrote the book with Mohini Mohan Chatterjee. Somebody can remember. Tell me now if they remember that when Senate was trying to reach the masters through this other medium. The master told that she cannot reach me. Please don't try to do that. Even if the master tells him things like that, it somehow never seems to enter Sinet that he should not try to reach the master through any medium. So he keeps on trying. He keeps on trying. So in 1889, he was trying through this lady called Maud Louis Travers. This lady is a who lived in Ireland, later married this Irish man called William Scott Elliot. And this William Scott Elliot has written two books, The Story of Atlantis and The Lost Lemuria. So this Maud Louis Travers, this lady, Sinet was trying to get communication, but at one point, Maud stopped this work. She refused to do this work, and then he looked for some other mediums. This kind of thing he was doing because he thought that the masters will communicate with any medium. Again, see, he was not understanding the core of that whole business of spiritualism. He's not understanding those things. So even though he's written with clarity, the deep understanding has not happened. Now, that is again something for all of us. We may get the framework of theosophy, but the deep understanding are we getting of the message? Anyway, when a few years later, this lady could no longer act as the master's mouthpiece, so Mr. Sinnett firmly believed, he sought another and later another. And when I saw him last, the latest medium was a man, and Mr. Sinnett never doubted the genuineness of these communications received through these channels. So, complete self delusion, Mr. Sinnett was in. There was in Mr. Sinnett a strong belief, which it was the business of none of us to challenge, that if ever the master determined to communicate, he would do so with him first and only through him to others. He was the only channel, that's what he thought. It would have to come distinctly as a shock to him that Mr. Leadbeater, so junior to him in all the theosophical matters, had received a letter, and not he, Mr. Sinnett. The masters desired that Mr. Sinnett should not feel hurt, and hence said the words, "Show my notes to no one." So, this entire elaborate commentary is only to explain the context of this line. Show my notes to no one means don't show to Sinnett specially. So long as Mr. Sinnett lived, neither Leadbeater nor I. So they never told this. Imagine this, no? How a theosophist protects another theosophist. So long as Mr. Sinnett lived, neither Mr. Leadbeater nor I wanted him, should he read the second letter when published, to feel hurt at this ban from the master. The master knew this characteristic of Mr. Sinnett, his belief that he was the only true representative of the master's wishes. For in a long letter which Colonel Olcott received from the master on the board ship when nearing Brindisi in 1888, letter number 19 from the Letters of Masters of Wisdom first series, giving him advice and instruction regarding a troublesome situation in London, the master adds the postscript. Prepare, however, to have the authenticity of the present denied in certain quarters. The background of this is in 1888, after writing The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky started the Blavatsky Lodge. Why did she start the Blavatsky Lodge? Because of Sinnett. Sinnett was the president of the London Lodge. And he was having his say, and as usual, the way he was treating Blavatsky started her own lodge, Blavatsky Lodge. And we all know that some of the most clear teachings of Blavatsky are in that in the conversations she had with the students in that lodge, which is called the Transactions of the Blavatsky Lodge. Even now, scholars we read that part because that Transactions of Blavatsky Lodge helps us to understand secret doctrine better. What's the peculiar thing is, not only is there a transaction of the Blavatsky Lodge, there is a transactions of the London Lodge created by Senate. See the competition. See, he did not understand the occult nature of HPV, even though he was given so much information. He was told about her sevenfold bodies, some component of every part of her body was in Tibet. Hence, it was difficult for her to control her impulsiveness, her emotional turbulence, etc. All the detail he knew. Still, even if you teach somebody, you can din it in, but understanding has to come from within a person. You can't force a person to understand. And Sinet was not understanding HPV or Olcott. So here the master is saying that be prepared, that now Alcott is going to London because of this problem being created by HPV, where she has started the esoteric section. In that Blavatsky Lodge, she has started the esoteric section, which Alcott was not very happy with. He didn't want a separate section to be started. For sorting that out, he was going, and to that, at that time, whatever he was thinking, the master had written a letter to him and on his way to London. So he says that be careful because people are going to suspect that this letter of yours is not an authentic letter. And exactly that happened. Now we'll see that the master was right. And what were the certain quarters we see? That is, who are the people who won't believe this is an authentic letter? We see from letters written by Mr. Sinnett on October 12th and 23rd, 1888 to Leadbeater, who was then working in Ceylon. One queer thing, that is, now Sinnett is writing to Leadbeater. Alcott has got with him a letter apparently from the Master KH, received when he was on his voyage home. After making rather a mystery of it at first, he ultimately showed it to him. And I do not feel at all sure of it. So he's suspecting. It reads to me very much ensued with the other letters in blue handwriting that came during the 1884 crisis, when Madame Blavatsky herself admitted to me afterwards that during that time the masters had stood aside and left everything to various chelas, including freedom to use the blue handwriting. Of course, this paragraph is most strictly private to yourself. I do not want to raise a fresh storm by impugning the authenticity of the letter, which moreover has no direct reference to me, though it reads as though, in certain sense, written at me, against a circumstance which makes it suspicious under the circumstance. As I know in my own heart that my inner loyalty to the master and his ideas, as far as I can interpret them, is as unchangeably perfect as ever, as sound as yours, and I can't say more. So many confused and deluded thoughts. The letter is all just glorification of Madam B. That is, Sinnett is continuing. This letter, which has been written to Alcott, the letter is all just glorification of Madam B. Well, if he made me know that he wanted me to beg Madam B's pardon for having been ill judged by her, I would go and apologize most humbly. But meanwhile, I can only follow the inner light. And what was the inner light of Sinnett? Fight HPV, treat her badly. Okay, let's continue. Of course, Alcott, in a simple, guileless way, takes the letter as entirely genuine without a thought of questioning it, and he is not to be blamed for doing so. I have not thought it of the least use to tell Alcott that I do not believe in the authenticity of the letter. So here you see all the things that AP Sennett's thinking being shared to Leadbeater. So I conclude, that is now Raja is saying, so I conclude this pathetic story of a splendid worker for Theosophy who might have become a far greater server still had he had less pride of mind as also pride of race, of his betrayal, unconscious again, of the trusted place in him by express command by the master never to publish certain personal and intimate letters of the master and of his brother, the master M. I say nothing here. Here, obviously, Raja does not approve the Mahatma letters to be published because the masters had clearly said that please do not publish it. If you published it, it will add confusion because we have withheld some information. We have not told this in a systematic fashion. Please wait, the secret doctrine will tell everything. So don't publish it, is what he had told. But Sinnett had given the entire set of letters to Trevor Barker to have it published after his death, which Barker did. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Each of us, I think it is a good thing because it does help us all to study theosophy better. So the last line of this is, for a man with a perpetual grievance warps his mind and is not fully responsible for the derelictions of duty which honor forbids. Perpetual grievance against people, against family, against friends. And eventually, he didn't even have much money. He was supported by Annie Besant to manage his last bit. He lost all his uh, whatever he had earned when he went and took with him to England. He lost everything in many wrong investments and business ventures. So anyway, we can look at all these faults of Sinet because many of these faults are probably present in some form or the other in us. But even if we see the faults, let us all be grateful to Sinet's contribution, to his sacrifice, to the amount of service he did to various theosophists, hosting them both in India and in England, taking care of them. Whatever he did, I think we still owe a lot to Sinet. And with that gratitude, let us end today's talk. Thank you all for listening patiently.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your gentle words and keen observations that you have shared with us. And now it's time to welcome our cherished friend and translator, Meenakshi ji. Uh, Meenakshi ma'am, welcome and you're on. Please continue.
सभी को नमस्ते और थैंक यू सिस्टर विमल जी आपके इस विस्तारित जानकारी के लिए और थैंक यू दीपिका जी। आज हम महात्मा केच द्वारा CW लेडबिटर का जो सेकंड पत्र है उसके ऊपर से जिनराज दास क्या लिखते हैं उसे देखते हैं। पहले तो सी जिनराज दास एक वाक्यांश लेते हैं लेटर में से, ग्रीटिंग टू यू माय न्यू चेला, यानी अभिनंदन मेरे नवचेला। जन्म जन्मांतर की आकांक्षा इस तरह पूर्ण हुई क्योंकि मिस्टर लेडबिटर मास्टर केच को कई पिछले जन्मों से जानते थे और उनके बताए रास्ते पर चलने की कोशिश करते थे, लेकिन इस जन्म में उनके कर्म उन्हें मुक्ति पथ के द्वार तक ले आए, जो सेवा कार्य में आनंद का मार्ग भी है। हमारे प्रभु तथागत की स्मृति जीवात्मा में झलक उठी और देहात्मा निम्न मन को भासमान पूरी तरह से अनजान अंधेरी स्थिति से ऊंचा उठा। महान संकट के समय अंतर ज्ञान चमक उठा और जिस अनुभव एवं कार्य के लिए औसतन 7 साल लगते हैं, ऐसा कहा जाता है, वे केवल 12 घंटों में साकार हुए, पूर्ण हुए। मास्टर का अगला वाक्यांश है, शो माय नोट्स टू नो वन, मेरे नोट्स किसी को न दिखाए। इसके ऊपर से जिनराज दास की कमेंट्री है। वे लिखते हैं कि मास्टर की अनुमति से कई सालों के बाद वे पत्र मुझे दिखाए गए, लेकिन 1908 में ही मास्टर की अनुमति से वह पत्र उस साल के द थियोसॉफिस्ट के जनवरी के अंक में प्रकाशित हुआ। जब पत्र छापा गया तब मिस्टर लेडबिटर ने जानबूझकर पत्र के अंत में लिखित शो माय नोट्स टू नो वन, मेरे नोट्स किसी को न दिखाए, इस पंक्ति को हटा दिया। और इसी तरह मैंने भी 1919 में लेटर्स फ्रॉम द मास्टर्स ऑफ द विजडम की फर्स्ट सीरीज को दोबारा छापा, तब इस वाक्य को छोड़ दिया। ऐसा क्यों? मास्टर केज के पत्रों की कमेंट्री के इस भाग का विवरण देना सबसे मुश्किल हिस्सा है, क्योंकि यह बात उस महान थियोसॉफिस्ट से संबंधित है जिसका अपने मास्टर के प्रति प्रेम था लेकिन अंतर्बोध की कमी और बुद्धिमानी के घमंड से उन्होंने मास्टर को बहुत निराश किया। एचपीबी और कर्नल ओलकॉट के बाद थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी के दिग्गजों में से एपी सिनेट एक थे। अपनी किताब ऑकल्ट वर्ल्ड के जरिए उन्होंने पाश्चात्य देशों में सिद्ध पुरुषों के अस्तित्व और उनके तत्वज्ञान को घोषित किया। यह उनकी बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि थी। निश्चित ही एचपीबी की महान किताब आइसिस अनवील्ड दुनिया के सामने आने से पहले उन्होंने कर्नल ओलकॉट और अन्य लोगों के साथ मिलकर 1875 में थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी की स्थापना की थी और 1878 में द थियोसॉफिस्ट शुरू करके उत्कृष्ट कार्य किया। लेकिन यह मिस्टर सिनेट ही थे जिनकी किताब एसोटेरिक बुद्धिज्म में आधुनिक जगत को प्रथम बार महात्माओं के ज्ञान और विशेषतः मानव जाति की उत्क्रांति में उनके कार्य की रूपरेखा दी गई थी। मास्टर्स से नाना प्रकार के सवालों के जवाब से जो अक्सर बहुत ही भिन्न भिन्न विषयों पर थे, मिस्टर सिनेट ने अपने दिमाग से उन मूल विचारों को समझ लिया जिन्हें मास्टर्स ने मनुष्य, अदृश्य जगत, मृत्युपरांत जीवन और युगों युगों से संपूर्ण मानव जाति की हो रही उत्क्रांति के बारे में कहा था। एसोटेरिक बुद्धिज्म किताब के चलते सनातन ज्ञान का एक अलग पहलू सामने आया जिसे आधुनिक जगत के बुद्धिजीवी लोग जांच परख कर सकते और समझ सकते थे। यद्यपि मिस्टर सिनेट में एक अजीब दोष था। हालांकि उन्हें मास्टर केज के प्रति गहन प्रेम था, श्रद्धा थी, जिन्हें वे अपना पालक के रूप में यानी गार्जियन के रूप में संबोधित करते थे। फिर भी मास्टर के इच्छानुसार अपने स्वभाव के कुछ पहलू बदलने की इच्छा शक्ति उनमें नहीं थी। आखिर तक पाश्चात्य रेसेस की श्रेष्ठता और पौर्वात्य रेसेस की गौणता को लेकर उनमें गहरा पक्षपात था, पूर्वाग्रह था। हालांकि वे एपी सिनेट महात्माओं की शक्ति से कभी कभी अचंभित हो जाते, फिर भी सिनेट को यह कभी भी यकीन नहीं हुआ कि महात्मा गण पौर्वात्य होने पर भी हर विषय में विशेषतः पश्चिमी मामलों में उनसे बेहतर जानकारी रखते हैं। पश्चिमी लोगों के मन में थियोसॉफी कैसे बिठाए, इस विषय को लेकर वह मास्टर्स के विचारों के खिलाफ अपने मतों को कैसे जोर देकर रखते थे, इसे हमें केवल मास्टर्स और उनके बीच हुए दीर्घ पत्र व्यवहार से पता चलता है। एचपीबी द्वारा सीनेट को दी गई आइसिस की प्रति में टू द बॉस लिखना या अपने मास्टर को द बॉस कहकर सीनेट को सब बॉस कहकर संबोधित करना महज एक मजाक नहीं था। अपनी बुद्धिमत्ता के इसी घमंड की वजह से वह अन्यायपूर्ण काम करते। मास्टर भी कहते हैं सीनेट एचपीबी और कर्नल ओलकॉट दोनों के प्रति निष्ठुर थे। मिस्टर सीनेट को अमेरिकी लोकतंत्र और कर्नल ओलकॉट के तहजीब की और सामाजिक शिष्टाचार की कमी से बहुत चिढ़ आती और इसी तरह उन्हें एचपीबी अनेकों बातों में हमेशा गलत लगती। धीरे धीरे वह मास्टर्स से अवास्तविक मांग करने लगे और यह मानने के लिए बिल्कुल ही तैयार नहीं थे कि गुह्य विद्या में कड़े नियम हैं, चाहे मास्टर केज जो भी करे। इस तरह मिस्टर सिनेट ने अपने और उस गार्जियन के बीच दीवार खड़ी करनी शुरू कर दी जिन्हें वह अपने अंतःकरण से प्रेम करते थे। अंततः जब 1884 में कोलम्स दंपति का हमला तब शुरू हुआ और मिस्टर सिनेट की एचपीबी को उनकी मूर्खताओं और गलतियों के लिए दोषी ठहराने की प्रवृत्ति बढ़ गई, तब मास्टर ने उनसे कहा, खैर वह लगभग मरणासन्न है और मुझे सच बोलने के लिए माफ करे, लेकिन यह आप ही है जिन्होंने उस मुंहफट लेकिन सच्ची एजेंट की जान ली, वह जो सच में आपके लिए निष्ठावान थी। मित्र, गर्व और अहम भाव से सावधान रहे। यह उन साधकों के पैरों के लिए दो सबसे बुरे फंदे हैं जो ज्ञान और अध्यात्म के उच्च मार्ग पर चढ़ने की आकांक्षा करते हैं। आपने अपने सुरक्षा कवच का एक हिस्सा दुप्पाओं के लिए खोल दिया है। अगर वे इसे खोजे और आपको वहां घायल करे तो शिकायत न करना। मिस्टर लेडबिटर को उनका पत्र मिलने से पहले मिस्टर सीनेट को यह पत्र लंदन के अक्टूबर 10, 1884 में मिला था। उसी साल जुलाई की शुरुआत में मास्टर ने मिस्टर सीनेट को लिखा, आपके अंतस्थ अंतःप्रेरणा को अनावृत्त करने का एक और प्रयास निश्चित किया है। ऐसा आखिरी बार करने की मुझे इजाजत है। दुर्भाग्य से आपकी मानवीय बुद्धिमत्ता चाहे कितनी भी महान हो, फिर भी आपकी आध्यात्मिक बोध क्षमता, आध्यात्मिक अंतर्ज्ञान धुंधली और अस्पष्ट है, क्योंकि इसे कभी विकसित नहीं किया गया। यह महात्मा लेटर 62 में से लिया गया है। सी जिनराज दास आगे लिखते हैं, यह शायद 10 अक्टूबर के बाद और 31 अक्टूबर के पहले मिस्टर लेडबिटर को मास्टर के पहले पत्र की तारीख की यह बात हो रही है, जब एचपीबी के साथ कुछ ज्यादा ही नाइंसाफी करके मिस्टर सीनेट ने मास्टर के साथ अपना नाता तोड़ा, और इसीलिए मास्टर ने लिखा कि सच्चाई उसके साथ उसके पक्ष में है, यानी एचपीबी के पक्ष में है। तुम्हारे इल्जाम बहुत ही अन्यायपूर्ण है और यह तुम्हारी ओर से होने के कारण मुझे और भी दुख हुआ। यदि इस स्पष्ट कथन के बाद भी तुम्हारा यही रवैया रहा, तब मुझे हमारी इस नई विफलता पर बहुत खेद होगा और तहे दिल से दुआ करूंगा कि तुम्हें अधिक काबिल गुरु मिलकर तुम यशस्वी हो। उनमें यानी एचपीपी में निश्चित ही चैरिटी की कमी है, लेकिन आप में तो समझदारी की कमी है, विवेक की कमी है। आखिर में मास्टर खेदपूर्वक आपका लिखकर पत्र को समाप्त करते हैं। से जिनराज दास आगे लिखते हैं, लेकिन मिस्टर सीनेट ने आखिर तक वही रवैया बनाए रखा। उनके निधन के एक वर्ष पूर्व जब मैंने उन्हें देखा था, तब भी वे अपनी शिकायतों से ग्रसित थे और एचपीबी और विशेषतः थियोसॉफी में उनके योगदान की बुराई कर रहे थे। लेकिन इसके उल्टा मिस्टर पेशेंस सीनेट, जो कि एक बहुत ही बुद्धिमान महिला थी, वे एचपीबी को समझ सकती थी और उनके असामान्य तौर तरीकों और आवेगपूर्ण स्वभाव को भी नजरअंदाज करती थी, क्योंकि वे एचपीबी को चाहती थी और एचपीबी यह जानती थी, जैसे मास्टर्स भी जानते थे। बचपन में जब मैं इंग्लैंड में गया था, तब मैं 2 साल उनके घर रहा। ऐसा से जिदराज दास लिखते हैं आगे। हालांकि वे मुझसे अच्छे से पेश आते, लेकिन हमारा केवल परिचय मात्र था। हालांकि मिस्टर लेडबिटर के साथ उनका व्यवहार हमेशा अच्छा रहता था, यानी मिस्टर सीनेट का व्यवहार। हालांकि मुझे मिस्टर सीनेट और उनकी कार्य पद्धति को देखने का बहुत मौका मिला, क्योंकि 1894 में मुझे मास्टर के चेला के रूप में लंदन लॉज के इनर ग्रुप में भर्ती किया गया था और ग्रुप की खास मीटिंग्स यानी निजी मीटिंग्स और अनौपचारिक मीटिंग में, जो ज्यादातर रविवार की सुबह होती थी, उस चर्चाओं के लिए वहां मैं उपस्थित रहता था। 1889 में भी जब मैं मिस्टर सीनेट के घर में रहने आया, तब भी उन्हें कभी यह एहसास नहीं हुआ कि उन्होंने मास्टर से उनका संपर्क तोड़ दिया है। यद्यपि उन्हें मास्टर से कोई पत्र प्राप्त नहीं होता, फिर भी उन्हें यह पक्का यकीन था कि मास्टर उनके साथ एक अतीन्द्रिय दृष्टि वाले महिला के जरिए बात करते हैं। उस महिला को वे हर हफ्ते ट्रांस में रखते। महिला वह महिला आयरलैंड में रहती थी। कुछ सालों बाद जब मिस्टर सीनेट को लगा कि वह महिला मास्टर से वार्तालाप करने का जरिया नहीं हो रही, तब उन्होंने दूसरे व्यक्ति का सहारा लिया और उसके बाद और एक व्यक्ति का, और अंतिमतः आखिर समय एक वह मीडियम एक आदमी था। इन मीडियम्स के द्वारा होने वाले संप्रेषण की सच्चाई पर मिस्टर सीनेट को कभी भी शक नहीं हुआ। मिस्टर सीनेट का यह पक्का यकीन था कि यदि मास्टर ने कभी संवाद करने का निश्चय किया, तब वे पहले सीनेट से ही बात करेंगे और केवल उनके जरिए दूसरों से। और इस बात पर आपत्ति दर्शाना हम में से किसी का काम नहीं, ऐसा उन्हें लगता। उन्हें यह जानकर बहुत दुख होता कि मिस्टर लेडबिटर, जो थियोसॉफिकल मामलों में उनसे इतने कम अनुभवी है, उनके जूनियर है, उन्हें पत्र मिले, न कि मिस्टर सीनेट को स्वयं को। मास्टर चाहते थे कि मिस्टर सीनेट को बुरा न लगे, और इसीलिए उन्होंने कहा, मेरे नोट्स किसी को न दिखाएं। जब तक मिस्टर सीनेट जिंदा थे, न तो मिस्टर लेडबिटर और न ही मैं यह चाहते कि जब यह दूसरा पत्र प्रकाशित हो और सीनेट उसे पढ़े, तब उन्हें मास्टर की मनाही से बुरा लगे। मिस्टर सीनेट का मानना कि वे ही मास्टर के मंसूबों के खरे प्रतिनिधि हैं, इस विलक्षणता के बारे में मास्टर जानते थे, क्योंकि 1888 में ब्रिंडिसी में जाने वाले जहाज पर कर्नल ओलकॉट को प्राप्त मास्टर के लंबे पत्र में उन्होंने उन्हें लंदन की एक मुश्किल स्थिति के बारे में सलाह और निर्देश दिए थे। पत्र के अंत में मास्टर ने लिखा, लेकिन कुछ लोगों द्वारा इस बात की सच्चाई को नकारे जाने के लिए तैयार रहे। सी जिनराजदास कहते हैं कि मास्टर सही थे, और वे कुछ लोग कौन थे, यह हमें मिस्टर सीनेट द्वारा मिस्टर लेडबिटर को 12 अक्टूबर में लिखित पत्रों में से पता चलता है। मिस्टर लेडबिटर उस समय सिलोन में कार्य कर रहे थे। सीनेट लेडबिटर को लिखते हैं, अजीब बात है, ओलकॉट के पास एक पत्र है जो शायद मास्टर केएच का है, जिसे उन्हें घर वापस जाते समय जहाज पर मिला था। पहले तो उन्होंने इस बात का पता नहीं चलने दिया, लेकिन फिर आखिर में उन्होंने मुझे पत्र दिखाया। पत्र की सत्यता पर मुझे बिल्कुल भी यकीन नहीं है। यह मुझे 1884 के संकटकाल के दौरान नीली लिखावट में आए दूसरे पत्रों जैसा ही लग रहा है। एचपीबी ने स्वयं कुछ समय बाद मुझे बताया कि उस दौरान मास्टर्स पीछे हट गए थे और उन्होंने अपने चेलाओं को नीले रंग की लिखावट इस्तेमाल करने की स्वतंत्रता देने सहित सब कुछ उन पर छोड़ दिया था। बेशक यह पैराग्राफ आपके लिए पूरी तरह से प्राइवेट है। मुझे पत्र की असलियत पर सवाल उठाकर कोई नया बवाल नहीं खड़ा करना है। पत्र में सीधे सीधे मेरा जिक्र तो नहीं है, लेकिन एक तरह से मेरे ऊपर लिखा हुआ प्रतीत होता है। यह फिर से ऐसी हालत में संदेह वाली बात बनती है, क्योंकि मैं अंतरतम से जानता हूँ कि मास्टर और उनके विचारों के प्रति मेरी आंतरिक निष्ठा, जहाँ तक मैं समझता हूँ, हमेशा की तरह आपकी निष्ठा जैसे ही पूर्णतः पक्की है। मैं और कुछ नहीं कह सकता। पत्र में केवल मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की की पढ़ाई है। खैर, यदि वे मुझे बता दे कि वे चाहते हैं, यानी मास्टर चाहते हैं कि मैं मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की से माफी मांगू कि उन्होंने उनसे गलत बर्ताव किया, तब मैं बहुत ही विनम्रता से जाकर उनसे माफी मांगूंगा। लेकिन मैं केवल अपनी अंतरात्मा की ही सुनता हूँ। आगे सीनेट लिखते हैं पत्र में कि बेशक कर्नल ओलकॉट ने अपने सरलपन से बिना किसी शक के पत्र को बिल्कुल ही असली मान लिया, और ऐसा करने के लिए उन्हें दोषी नहीं ठहराया जा सकता। मुझे उस पत्र की सत्यता पर जरा भी विश्वास नहीं। इसे ओलकॉट को बताना व्यर्थ लगा। इस पर से जिनराज दास लिखते हैं आखिर में कि मैं अब थियोसॉफी के एक उत्तम कार्यकर्ता की दयनीय कहानी समाप्त करता हूँ, जो एक श्रेष्ठतम कार्यकर्ता बन सकते थे यदि उनमें स्वयं पर और अपनी रेस यानी पाश्चिमात्य सभ्यता पर घमंड कम होता। मास्टर के एच और उनके बंधु मास्टर एम के कुछ निजी और व्यक्तिगत पत्रों को कभी प्रकाशित न करने के स्पष्ट आदेश द्वारा सीनेट यह आदेश सीनेट को दिया था और उन पर विश्वास किया था। लेकिन सीनेट ने इस विश्वासघात किया मास्टर्स का, उन लेटर्स को प्रकाशित करके। उसके बारे में मैं यहाँ कुछ नहीं कहूंगा। आखिर में सी जिनराजदास लिखते हैं, क्योंकि हमेशा शिकायत करने वाले व्यक्ति का मन विकृत हो जाता है और सम्मान के विरुद्ध किए गए कर्तव्यों के उल्लंघन के लिए वह पूरी तरह जिम्मेदार नहीं होता है। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful words. And you carried the perfect tune with the speaker's spirit. Uh, and if anyone wants to add a word or question, please feel free to unmute. Please, anyone. Shindeji. Please, sir.
Hello, Deepika.
Hi, sir.
Vimalji has explained very, very nicely, and Meenakshi Gaidani also read very. The letter is very clear. In spirituality, what we learn from such letter is that uh, you can go fast if you are alone, but you cannot go far away. You can go fast, but you cannot reach to the goal or far away. If you want to go far away, you must go together. That is the proverb, actually. So, if you remember this, that is what masters want to say to AP Senate, that you go together with Colonel Alcott, H.P. Blavatsky, and be with them. Of course, it is only A.O. Hume and AP Senate received the Mahatma letters because they are of great capacity. We have much regards to them because we are reading today the master's letter because of AP Senate and AOU. And we are trying to study and all that. So we have great regards to both of them. But still, how the human intellectual pride works, how ego comes in the middle, that's all is shown by C. Jinras Das' comment. And C.W. Leadbeater, even Colonel Alcott, they also received the letters. Annie Besant also received the letters. But most of the letters are received by AP Senate and AOU. Because masters were knowing only these are the persons who can understand very well and can convey, and they have in their heart to help the humanity. So this made them to qualify to receive the Mahatma letters. That was their greatness. But still, the ego works, human ego works. That is what it shows the whole letters. I must congratulate Vimalji. Very nicely she explained. As if she is a really like historian, she found many, many things in between. Thank you to all the three people, Deepika, Meenakshi, and yes, Vimalji. Vimalji, do you have any questions on it?
No, sir. Actually,
Yeah,
I don't
you
know.
have explained very well.
I don't know. Like, it's really perplexing for me that in one hand, like, okay, I do have like one question. Like, how can Synod have so much love for the master and so much hatred for everybody else?
It is racial ego. It is racial ego. It is racial ego which works. We don't know about it, but that is what Master has said there. Racial pride or racial ego. They were looking down to the other peoples. So that in many forms it works. That is what we can understand.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And okay, anyone, please? Okay, it's almost near to closing of this session. And everyone, please note that uh, on the next week, we will have a summary of all these learnings of this whole letter number 2. And let's close this session with a short prayer. असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति shanti. Okay, thank you all, Indian section and Shinde ji, and to all speakers. Thank you for all the members for your presence and have a blessed evening ahead. Namaste.